Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to 1% Better, where we take a look at hidden stories in sport. I'm Zylan Fanake, and I'm joined by Dr. David Lipman. His medical question today is, what is the most mobile joint in the human body?
I think we might have had this one before, but I'm going to say they think it's the shoulder, but we talked a little bit about the fact that that's actually four joints.
It is the shoulder joint. That's what they say.
Well, again, it's four joints, right? We had this before where I messed it up, and Shari Stewart sent us a message going, "Oh, it's this one." So, uh, I mean, listen, the glenohumeral joint, which is what they all refer to as a shoulder joint, is very mobile, but it is assisted by the movement of the shoulder blade, the scapula, which then allows it to position and be more mobile. But it's also the reason that shoulder dislocations are common or relatively common, right? Because the more mobile something is, the less stable it is, and vice versa, right?
Okay, so
So
when people have a dislocation, it's likely to happen on that side again.
yes, well, there's two things there. So, firstly, if you think about it, everyone thinks joints are just about like two bones, but there's actually ligaments and joint capsule and all sorts of stuff around it. If you dislocate it, that stuff all gets stretched,
Mm.
so it doesn't like go back 100%. You can also have little lesions that happen, known as there's like that's a labral tear, so slap tear, superior labral, anterior to posterior, slap SLAP, which is about that. You can have little lesions on the actual on the bone as well, where you get like loss, like these things get sort of chipped off or whatever, and then it becomes less stable inherently as a
Mm.
result of that. So there's all those factors that sort of predispose you as well. So that's sometimes why people will have a dislocation. It'll go back in, and they'll get surgery as a result to tighten some of that stuff back up.
Okay. Okay. By the way, we have Kristian Hogenhaug coming up, pro triathlete, on this pod, because I'm pretty sure I just said his name wrong again. But
Close. I reckon that's closer than you were in the interview, mate. I think that was pretty good.
I've been practicing. Well, he corrected me on the episode. Well, you'll be able to hear that in later on in this episode. He joins us courtesy of Precision Fuel and Hydration. He gave us some great insight into what fueling looks like for him during a race. We spoke about what it looks like during a 70.3, what it looks like during an Ironman, and if that differs during Ironman Kona. So just, man, the guy was next level. Really, really loved talking to him.
I really enjoyed some of the discussions around experimentation and how he goes about that, because he's both a coach and an athlete. So I think there's some really good insights there that anybody can take away, right? Even if you don't care who he is and what he does, triathlon or whatever, you might be a runner, you might be something else. I just think how he approaches things and some of the stuff he talks about, if you think about like, how does this apply to me from an experimentation standpoint? I think there's a ton there for people. He had a really cool thing towards the end around pressure and dealing with pressure and negative thoughts that I think was great as well. And then we obviously have him in preview to Challenge Roth, which is next weekend at the time this will be released, which is one of the higher profile races in long distance triathlon. It's going to be a fast race. Some of the world's best are there. He's part of that. He's going to be part of a electric bike course with dynamite's going to go off everywhere. So yeah, I'm keen to see this.
He is fueled by Precision Fuel and Hydration. The good news for you is he brought you a 15% discount off your first purchase. That discount code is better2026. We also have a link in the show notes down below. You raced last weekend, man. I have no idea how it went, apart from it was 28K. You did almost 5 hours from what I've seen on Strava, but you were like, I'm not telling you anything. Let's get on the pod and I'll do a debrief on the pod. So I've not heard anything about how it went. How was it?
Yeah, I think so. So just for context here, the reason we did this is that sometimes you and I have all these conversations offline, and then on the podcast you try and recreate it. It's not quite as good, and we always try to get better, right? As a podcast as well. And part of this discussion was actually we should do more of this stuff more authentically on the podcast, because I think the experience for the listener will be better. So please do feel free to let us know and keep us posted. And as always, there's show notes. So for those who aren't interested in how my race went, feel free to hit the next chapter and go to the next show note and see what's happening there. So that's part of why we do that, so people can self-select into parts of that. But we're also going to have some data that pops up on the screen. I'm going to make Zylan's life really difficult by mentioning a bunch of data that people can have a look at. If you are following us on YouTube or on Spotify video, you will be able to see some of that data if it interests you, because I think there's some interesting talking points here. But I said last week on the podcast, I'm racing a 20K with about, I think it was 1,200 meters. And so
That did not correlate from what I saw in Strava.
no, So that race was called I can't remember what it's called. I think it was the Sham, and I happened to sign up to the Rock previously, and just I was at the time of signing up, I was unsure which one I was going to sign up to. I sort of thought the 20 will be doable, and I should, that's the safe option, and the 27. That might be a bit of a stretch, but it'd be good. And the Argentière was like 50K. And I was like, well, that's the one I would have previously done. Which one do I do between these? And I was like vacillating between the two, couldn't decide. Signed up for Megan in the short one. I was like, maybe I'll do that with her anyway. And I was humming and ahhing, and then I eventually signed up to one and just forgot about it. And had for some reason, I just thought I was doing the shorter one. And then I got there to grab my bib number, and they're like, nah, that race is gone. And I was like, what? And they're like, it started already. I was like, and then I had this moment of like, am I going to be able to get my bib and just run the shorter one? Probably not. Is my day like, is that it? I'm not racing today? Or what happens here? And they're like, if you want to grab your bib, you can run the other course. And they sort of looked at me, and I think they went quickly like, oh, he'll catch up. He's fine. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm doing that. And I was like, all right, catch you later, Megan. Like threw my bag at her, and I was like, all right, I'm going to get going. And I just like jogged to the start line. I went up to one of the guys, like, can I go? And he's like, sure. What's happening? Anyway, so jog across the start line, and I was like, which way do I go? And he goes, right. And then, there's these confidence ribbons that sort of line the course, these trail markers. And I'm like, cool, great. I can follow these. They're super helpful. Great. Bright orange. We're going. And I was in a bit of a funny headspace because like I didn't want to get negative about it, but I was also like, I kind of have to catch this up and, what's happened here, and kind of half getting angry at myself for doing this, but then also using it as an opportunity to see how I went here. And then I was just pushing quite hard early, which was silly, but it's good learning. But because I started basically 15 minutes after the last wave, and I should have been in the wave before that. So I effectively was 20 minutes behind the wave that I would have been in. But the nice thing was, and I sort of mentioned on the pod last week, I'd see how I went. There was no one on the trails for ages. Like there's no one there.
Nice, yeah.
I'm at the back. So I'm just on these trails by myself for ages. But then I get to, and the courses had a lot of common trail. There was a lot of commonality to them, but obviously I've got to find 7K somewhere. So I get to this turnoff, and I run up, and I get there, and these guys just look at me, and I'm like, in French, I was like, hey, I started late or whatever. He goes, do you want to switch to English? And I'm like, yes, please. I said, oh, mate, I started late. They let me start. I'm going for it. And he goes, well, you're going that way. The others are going this way. I was like, okay, cool. No worries. He goes, the sweep is about 5 minutes in front of you. Just follow the trail. You'll be fine. And then that's when the penny dropped for me. Is like, oh, actually, there's a chance here the trail isn't marked if I don't catch this guy.
Oh, wow.
I saw someone get on a phone, and I was like, oh, no, it's fine. They're calling in. Anyway, I caught him, honestly, 5 minutes later. So 35 minutes into the race, I catch the sweeper, which is good news. Now I know the trail will be marked. We're good. And he said to me, I had a good chat to him, and he was like, the next people are about 5 minutes ahead of you. You'll catch them shortly. And so, at 40 minutes, I'd caught the back people. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to be last. It was like a first goal. It's like, don't be last here. And then the second goal was like, don't get cut off, because there were a couple of cut off points. And I was pretty confident I wouldn't get cut off, particularly looking at how slowly, if I can catch, if I can effectively put 40 minutes into somebody, sorry, if I can catch someone in 40 minutes, having given them a head start, I was like, I'm not going to get cut off here. But I was still pushing quite hard. It was hot early. We can flash up my my core temperature data there, but you can see it there, mate. I was as high as 39 degrees early in the race because it was hot, it was sunny, it was all that. So like actually it was a cool thing I've been building with Peloton, sunscreen brand, athletic sunscreen brand called this UV Load, and so I've been building the algorithm behind that, helping them build it. And I got a 98 out of a possible 100. Wow. So that's higher than they got in Kona last year. For the women. So it was quite a big day of sun. So it was like 35 degrees Celsius, which is like 100 and something Fahrenheit. It was sunny the whole day, just getting blitzed. Thankfully, I was in the forest for a portion of it, which was helpful. And up high, there was some nice breezes, but I was hot. I was pouring sweat. My core temperature data, as I said, I got up to 39. I got the maximum you could possibly get from a stimulus. It's 10 out of 10. So it was a big day in that respect. And you can kind of see that in my heart rate. It was quite high early. If anything, it settles off in the middle while I was climbing because I couldn't climb at the same intensity. And then, it picks up at the end as I try to sprint towards the finish line there. So it's quite interesting there. But as I said, I was sweating tons, but I was drinking a lot as well. It's a bit funny. I only carried a liter of water, but I was like, the goal is to finish this liter. I need to finish a liter at every aid station and refill a liter. That was my goal. Right. And there were probably 4 aid stations. So I did that and I managed, I did just under, I think I did 4.5 hours. It was 4:58. I was out for 5 hours. So yeah, it was 5 hours there. So I averaged about, I think I filled up 4 times. So I hit about a liter an hour, roughly, which is probably a little bit low, but you sort of, I had to balance that or carry an extra half liter. And then you're balancing the sweating and all that sort of stuff as well, and slowing down as a result. So, um, yeah, it was quite interesting. I was pretty cooked before the first little climb, and then I had to go from there. Uh, and the last climb was really tough. But then from there, I got to run downhill and started passing people. And if you look at my the timing data from there, I went very quickly to the first aid station, which is when I was pushing the hardest. Right, I was 37th in my group there, but then I was sort of 42nd, 44th, 42nd, 42nd there going downhill. But my last section, I was 35th there, so quite a lot quicker that last little bit. I ended up coming 42nd out of my age group, 104th out of the men, which is roughly half. There were 221 that did it. So pretty happy with the day. Achilles was a bit sore uphill, only like half out of 10. So not too bad, which was good. But I wasn't running a lot in this, which is quite interesting. You can kind of see, we'll talk about my stride data later, but I hit 60 grams an hour of carbs, which was good. Took a bunch of chews. I took a couple of gels. So I took a 90-gram gel, 30-gram caffeine gel, 4 chews, and then a couple of other things, some bits and pieces I found around the house. Didn't end up eating anything but the Precision, and then I grabbed some stuff on course there, which was good. But a couple of things I wanted to like sort of just talk about that I saw that was hilarious. So firstly, trail etiquette was crazy. There were poles everywhere. I almost got spiked a number of times. People like, if you've got poles on trail, think about who's behind you. Don't spike them. And if you're running, keep the spikes in front of you. If you're running without the poles, right? If you're not using them, is the first thing I'd say. There was a couple of folks who were doing this. There was no mandatory gear. A couple of folks had a cup and a phone. There's this guy, he had a Chico State cross country, Chico State's in California, a Chico State cross country shirt, phone, cup, nothing else, no water. I was like, this is insane. So that was quite surprising. I think he was in the 20K race. And then I also saw like, everybody I was looking at, I was like, oh, they're really young or they're really old. There was no one my age. Now, that's obviously a lie, but I was looking at everyone like, you're either young, you're a kid, you're 20, or you're 50. Like, you're not my age. There's no one my age. It was quite hilarious to me. But I was impressed with my French.
People really your age were in the front. You didn't get to see them. You didn't catch up to them.
It's probably fair, but also like there are probably people my age that I thought like looked older or younger. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah. But I was impressed with my French. There was one stage where I was running with a couple of women, and they took a wrong turn, and I yelled to them like, to the right in French straight away. So I was very impressed with myself in that respect, and being able to talk to people about being behind. But I did have a question for you, and a question for listeners that will be the Spotify question this week, which is running the race in the race shirt, play on or not?
That happens a lot, yeah. I don't do it. I wouldn't do it in the race because I've never tested it before. I don't know how much it chafes or anything like that. So that's purely the reason I wouldn't do it. I'm not going to bash anyone for doing it, but it happens a lot, yeah. But I wouldn't do it. I like to test my race shirts before actually wearing it in a race.
I feel the same way. I couldn't agree with you more. We will ignore the fact that they may not be the best quality. I'm just saying, just from even if they are the best quality, yeah, it's probably not happening for me. I'm probably not doing it.
I mean, it also depends on the race. Like, we've talked on this podcast multiple times where I've signed up to Cape Town Marathon just because I get a free entry and I get a shirt, even though I'm not doing the race, where Adidas is the sponsor, or Asics is the sponsor, and then the shirt is like unbelievable quality depending on who the sponsor is. So you could pretty much get away with wearing it on race day. But yeah, even over 5 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, no, I need to test that bad boy first.
Yeah, I think if you said to me, this is a community level, like sort of fun run, it's 5Ks or 10Ks, here's the shirt, we'd like you to wear it, I'd probably, okay, maybe. But yeah, I'd be a bit skeptical on that. It's just not for me. Maybe that's a spoiled viewpoint, but yeah, that's kind of the way I think about it. To be honest, those shirts become my gym shirts anyway. I never run in them, so maybe that's part of it as well.
Same, yeah. Should we dig into your stride data? What did your stride data say? We are supported by Stride running power meters on this podcast.
Yeah, I guess like there's some great data here based on like surface, based on uphill running, downhill running, flat running, and then hiking, which I think is really cool. And pull this out from the Stride app and put it in here, and you can flash it up on screen again. So what you can see here, I think probably the most interesting thing is the different wattages I can output in these different realms, because that speaks to training and efficiency to some degree in this. So you can see I'm in much better flat shape than hiking shape,
Mm.
which is unsurprising given the amount of running I do versus uphill hiking. There is like one of the outliers here is uphill running. And what I'd point people to is it's only been 8 minutes. So that was basically like when I'm trying to run before I have to break into a hike. So it's
Okay.
going to be higher power because I'm like overstretching and then I go to a hike. So that'd be why a good portion of it was there, or trying to pass someone on trail and having to do that. So yeah, but you can see I didn't do a lot of flat running, unsurprisingly, because there wasn't a lot of flat. There's obviously uphill and there's downhill running. You can see the downhill stuff is a little bit low. And that speaks to how steep some of this was, because it's so steep that I couldn't run fast down there. I would need to be stronger physically and also more durable, because part of my concern was if I really go for it here, I'm going to blow my legs up and not be able to finish going any further. So I had to sort of ease that off a bit.
Did you grab
But
this
yeah,
from the Stride dashboard?
no, I grabbed this from the app. So I pulled
Okay,
this out
wow.
and dug it out of the app. So you can certainly get more from the Power Center, the dashboard that's online, which has got a great amount of resources there. But you can also see there, if you go down, you can see my power duration curve, and you can see the impact of different sections here. So this is on the race. What impact did was my power there, and was it sort of new bests for the last 90 days? And what you can see is that my 6 second to 1 minute 40 power was higher than I've done in the last 90 days, unsurprisingly, because I've done nothing in that sort of duration, that realm. And there was a bit of that to try and pass people or whatever else. And then you can see the long stuff, right? The 2 hours to 5 hours, because I'd done almost none of that in preparation for this, because I thought I'd only be running 20Ks.
Oh, well done. If this data is really interesting, by the way, it makes me jealous that I'm not running at the moment. This is so interesting. But if you'd like to check out Stride Power Meters, we do have a link in the show notes, and that helps them know that it came from us. So check that out, please. Man,
Also, just I wanted to say, like, I had a few people following us along. I obviously posted in the Strava group about my data and said, "Oh, you're following up the pod," and a lot of support there. So just want to say thanks to listeners. Like you and I don't do this to be self-indulgent. In fact, when we started this as when we worked for a brand, we were a little bit embarrassed that people were interested in us, and it was a bit awkward. That was obviously the genesis of us starting this, and we appreciate people supporting along, and we appreciate that they are interested in us. But it's still very strange for us. Like at
yeah.
no point do we feel comfortable with it or take it for granted. So I do want to thank people that they care at all. It's a bit strange for us, and it's very flattering. So thank you to everyone who reached out and did that.
Yeah, we appreciate every single one of you. And if you're new here, I'd ask you now to subscribe to the podcast if you'd be so kind. We drop a new episode every single Friday. Speaking of those subscribers, let's have a look at what some people have done in this community the last little while. First one being Andreas Vegan, who ran half marathon, finished second at 1:21. That is lightning quick in the AP Link Electrino Marais half marathon. So shout out to you, Andreas Vegan.
We also had Phil Coleman do the Irish Runner 5 mile in 34 minutes, which is great. Jay McConnell won the Mount Greylock 30K. This is a 10K repeated loop. So you did one loop, two loops, or three loops. So congratulations on winning that one, Jay McConnell. And then your nemesis, Dan Squires, your most hated listener slash ex-co-host or whatever, fill-in co-host. He ran Flagstaff to Carlingford. I don't know what this was, but it sort of seemed like a fell race or similar, or at least cross-country. He said it was really boggy and muddy. So it was 16.58 Ks on Strava with 1,000 meters of climbing. It took him 2 hours 19. Now, that's, for him, I would estimate if that was on the roads, that would be closer to like maybe an hour 10 or so. So it's obviously slow going because it's trails or something similar.
And then we got a comment in on Spotify from Nick Economides. I have my notifications on for comments on Spotify, and I was actually walking out of the gym this morning, and this popped up. And Nick asks, based on last week's episode, David, why does thinking that the athletes are doping take away from your enjoyment of the sport? At the end of the day, what they do is still impressive. And as far as I know, drugs don't make you faster. You still need to have the talent and put in the work, no?
It's a really well made point. I think it's a really salient point from Nick. My response on Spotify and sort of here would be that is all correct, unless the difference in racing is not because, or the difference in the results is not because of something that's in control of the athletes, or that's not within the bounds of legality, right? So if a person who's doping beats somebody who's not doping, right? So I think his argument makes some sense in things like two of the most high-profile doping cases in the world, which is Ben Johnson in the 100-meter final, where everybody in that race got caught for doping at one point in their career, right? Where you can say, okay, so everybody was doing it. So that then relevels the playing field. Now, maybe not at the time. So there's an argument there. And then Lance Armstrong, whose jerseys were awarded to nobody, right? All his Tour de France's that were stripped of him were awarded to nobody because, like, the first 20 were caught for doping, right, in those races. So I think in those cases, his arguments is a well formulated, well thought out one. But I think part of the challenge with assuming people are doping or considering they're doping is that there may be an inequality there, and it may be structural as well, right? So if you can be state sponsored or state funded or state run doping versus say you're having to do it yourself, the level of technicality and support around it could be different. So when the margins are small and something like this could be bigger than that margin, then it's concerning, is the thought here. So is the difference between that these drugs give some people either because they respond better or because their competitors aren't taking them, is that bigger than the difference between the athletes?
I've seen many fans say over the years, "Oh, why not just make doping legal for everyone?" And then but like your point is well taken. It's not a level playing field. Different people respond differently to things, so it would not be a level playing
That,
field. That's
but
besides the
that's
health
also,
conversation, even.
yeah, but that is also the counter argument to that is for everything. Not
Yeah,
everyone responds to the same training the same way and stuff.
yeah.
So there's certainly that as well. So I appreciate that as well. But it's exactly right. It's the argument towards the steroid Olympics, though. The
Yeah.
traditional steroid Olympics, which everyone dopes, everyone gets the same doping, and we go for it.
We also got a comment in from Gabriel Bono Ayoki who said, "What really strikes me is the self awareness and humble levels when you speak. It's really exceptional to listen to such experts still being nice and fun. Great podcast as always." I don't know where you got that, mate. I'm not humble. Like my ego is gigantic. So
should hear
jokes,
should
jokes.
hear him should hear him off the podcast. It's even more so there. But
No.
so Gabriel, we know you submitted a question as well. We are going to get that to in a couple of weeks. We have an episode coming up on periodization, and it fits in really well there. So we will talk about it at that point. So we do appreciate that as well there.
We also got a question in from Kristian Trumpeter. And by the way, Kristian is a baller, man. I checked out his business Instagram account. The dude is so successful, looks like the part, and has a really cool business, like previewing architectural masterpieces of houses that people have built. Super cool. Anyway, Kristian says, "Hi, Zylan and David. Love the pod. A little context. The past couple of years, I have experimented with increasing weekly volume from 40 kilometers as a beginner in 2022 to 240 plus the last week, all single runs to uncover the limitations of my body without compromising fitness gains. My experience has been very surprising. I feel much stronger, recover way faster, and get less injured now with my current volume, including multiple workouts, than I did when I did 50 kilometers with only one workout. My question for you guys is therefore, does the science suggest a volume tipping point beyond diminishing returns? I could imagine a lack of empirical data in this area due to the limitation of extreme volume runners. So, could be an interesting discussion. Thanks for that, Kristian. David, what are your thoughts?
So, firstly, I would encourage people, if they're interested in this, to keep listening to the Kristian Hogenhaug episode, or rather, portion of the interview, or portion of the episode, interview portion of the episode, because we touch on this a little bit, sort of around this area. There's more here for context, so I think that's important, including like how would you know if you're adapting or not. So that's the first thing I'd say. So the first observation he makes, which is, yeah, when I did 50 Ks a week and one workout, now I do 240 and multiple workouts, and I'm less injured. That speaks to adaptation. So when you start out, you're at risk of injury. You're the most at risk of injury. Injury rates are quite high in beginners, and this is because one of the biggest risk factors or one of the biggest drivers of injury is a change in load, whether it's surface or shoes or intensity or whatever, adding hills, whatever. So this change in load will be the biggest risk factor for injury. Once you're at 240 Ks a week, you can add like two more workouts. And that's still a small proportion of load change compared to when you're at 50 Ks a week. When you're at 50 Ks a week, 1 kilometer is 2% of your weekly volume. So like we tend to like not think about these things proportionately. Sometimes you think in ultimate, sometimes you think in proportions, and you kind of have to have both. So that's the first thing I'd say. So it doesn't surprise me, and it's certainly what I experienced as well. When I was running less, I was more injury prone, says the guy who's got a dicky Achilles, but take that with a grain of salt. So back to his more specific question. So all training has diminishing returns. The first kilometer you run is more stimulating than the second kilometer you run ad
Etc.
infinitum.
Yeah.
And that is in a lifetime as well as in any one run, right? So there's diminishing returns, and there's diminishing returns across a week, etc. So the 200 kilometers is less stimulating, is less meaningful and less stimulating than your first 200 kilometer week, or your second, or sorry, the 200th kilometer is less stimulating and meaningful than your first, and the 200th week of 200 kilometers is less stimulating and meaningful than your first 200 kilometer week. So this is what the foundations of periodization come from, which is why we're doing an episode on it in the next few weeks. And the key is here is changing the stimulus in a smart way so that you're building, not risking injury, but you continue to adapt, right? And so you can do this with any number of variables. In his case, in Kristian's case specifically, an example might be that he goes from doing all of his running in singles to doing some doubles, right? So this will change it up. And we talked about this previously, a study. We basically saw that this would mean more mechanical load because he'd probably run a touch faster doing that at the same RPE or internal load. Or he'd run the same paces, and then that RPE or internal load would go down, right? So you'd have phases where you do doubles, phases where you do singles. You could also add altitude or heat or something like this. So you could add other stimulus, maybe add some swimming or some riding or something like that. So there's any number of ways to stimulate progression, but there is certainly diminishing returns, and like that'll be different for everybody. It's really about your stress tolerance and how you can tolerate that, right? So around travel or around whatever else is in your life. Yeah, it is at a high level, right, in terms of number, like amount of volume. I think most elite runners sit in that 100 miles, so 160 kilometers, to maybe 200 miles, which is 320 kilometers. So they're very few at that 200 miles realm, like very, very few. But a lot of people sit in that 160 to 200 Ks a week is pretty common for elite runners of all sort of marathon and beyond.
Incredible. Mind blowing. That amount of volume. But Kristian sent his question in on Instagram, and you can do so to DM us on Instagram, 1% Better Pod. If you want to email us, you can also do so. We have an email address in the show notes down below. We have added a new partner to this podcast in recent weeks, Nomeo. We're also going to have a few of their sponsored athletes coming on here and sharing their stories. One of the athletes is Morgan Pearson, right?
Yep. So done some half marathoning, done some some do Olympic distance triathlons and some like sort of half distance 70.3 type T100 stuff. So I just thought this was really cool. He put out a breakdown of his week and what his week looked like and where he used Nomeo in that week, which I find
Interesting.
to be quite interesting there. And so it's got a full breakdown on his Instagram. You can see it there. But in essence, he uses it 3 hours before his key sessions and then before bed on a heavy day, which is, the research would support that. I'm sure he's informed by the Nomeo scientists around that. So yeah, it's super cool to see this. It's cool to see how brands are communicating this stuff, how they're educating users, how they see themselves fitting into it. And then also, like, yeah, as you said, we've got some athletes coming up, but just some really big things. I'm catching up with some of the folks at Nomeo this afternoon to discuss with them some of the plans upcoming. But there's some, keep your ears and eyes peeled. There's some fun stuff coming for our listeners as well. So yeah, do keep an eye on that. We do appreciate Nomeo support. Please do follow the link in the show notes to support us and them, right? So that lets them know that you come from us.
Right, this is a massive episode. Let's go quickly because we've got so many interesting things to get through. What's come across my desk this week? Some quick bits for you. You called this London Marathon going to 2 days and Tokyo increasing its field size.
Yeah, so Tokyo Marathon's now got 40,000. So that's now, I think Boston would be the least number doing a World Marathon major. So 40,000 for its 20th anniversary next year. It's also now the most lucrative World Marathon major with 170,000 for winners of the elite races. I'm not sure if that's distributed across the top three or not. I haven't had time to do that research, but they've called it 170K. So that's big. My hunch is it's probably 100K plus then like maybe a 40 and a 30 or something like that, but maybe it's 170 for the winners, which is huge. And as we sort of discussed and hoped, London's going to be across 2 days and they're going to split the men's and women's races. They haven't said who's Saturday and who's Sunday, but there'll be men's elites, good for age and championship, as well as a para division on day one or day two. And then the mirror of that will be the women on the other day. And then the masses, you'll have 2 mass races but after that. Right, so that's for those who don't know, championship is basically British championship. So you have to be quite a good runner. So let's call it sub elite. And then beneath that is good for age, which is what I got, which is kind of more akin to like a Boston qualifier. So if you live in the UK and you ran a good enough time, you get this good for age entry, which is not the championship there.
And then should we move on to some cycling news? You want to talk Tour de Suisse? Because
Yeah.
we spoke about a few weeks ago Tour Down Under, saying they have much better equality now in a historic announcement of the men and women racing on the same day, blah, blah, blah. This has happened in the Tour de Switzerland as well. And you sent me this, and I sort of questioned, does this mean equality or not?
Yeah, well, I mean, so we were corrected on the Two Down Under
Yeah,
sort
yeah.
of thing there, and this then popped up, and I was like, it's interesting that firstly they didn't make as big a deal about this as they could have, which
Mm.
is I think bad PR from them. Like you should be making a noise about this. But I said to you, I sent it to you, and you sort of said, yeah, but is it actually equality? It's like, what do you mean by that? Is it because of TV time, or what's the story? Because or for context, what are they doing? What does it look like now?
So this year they held the Tour of Switzerland, or Tour de Suisse as it's known, over 5 stages with men and women racing the same start and finish venues. And there was a brief announcement, but this is equality, blah, blah, but there's a much bigger discussion going on here. The reason they're doing this is because they are in financial trouble. So it's great that they've increased the women's stages. Previously, the women started out with 3 stages only and then 4 stages. And then this is the first time they're doing 5 stages. Inversely to that, men used to race over 8 days. And before that, the race used to be in the 80s used to be 12 days. Now it's 5 days. It is the smallest world tour men's race in the world, joint smallest world tour men's race in the world. And it used to be the fourth biggest race in the world after the Tour de France, Giro d'Italia, Vuelta a España. So this is not a good sign. To me, if a country like Switzerland, a race in a country like Switzerland is struggling financially, that is a red flag. And so if you're into cycling, go and read Innering. You did a great blog on this, did a great story on this last week, sort of digging into this. So it is great that they've increased the number of racing for women to 5 days. But is it good that it's the same day as the men? Because the women race in the morning and the men race in the afternoon, meaning the women have a smaller audience where people are more likely to be busy and less likely to watch TV in the morning. Like it was strange. I was following a lot of the riders like Kazian Ivedoma on Instagram and what time they woke up this morning and what it's like to wake up at 6 a.m. It's not something they're used to. And the staff waking up at 5 a.m. It's not something that they're used to get everything ready, because typically they race later in the afternoon only. But the reason why they're doing this is to save money by having the same start and finish venues in terms of location. So every stage started at the same place and finished at the same place. And then also having both races obviously at the start and finish place. So they were saying it is to create more of an atmosphere in terms of a whole day vibe at a pure location. But I think there's also been struggling to have other cantons like welcome the race and put money into that. Um,
Mm.
yeah,
It's interesting. I mean, interestingly, I raced on the Saturday, and on the Sunday, the race came to the same town I was in. So
yeah.
on Saturday when I was leaving, I started to see a bunch of the tour buses rolling in and some of the cars as well. So that was quite cool to see. But yeah, listen, this sounds like more equality, but the TV time thing is a big one, right? Because that's what draws money. So that's the biggest thing. So yeah, follow the space. I think net positive, but some scary moments for cycling, as you sort of alluded to.
Yeah. Let's move on to world athletics. And I've been seeing this come across my feed a lot. The pregnancy research that they are going to undertake. What is this?
Yeah, talking about a bit about PR. So basically, World Athletics has launched a new study, and it says it's hoping to inform and improve policies. And I think this is good. So this is called the Childbirth and Return in Elite Sport, aka CARES. Very fun acronym. Well done. It's asking people to complete surveys. Current athletes who have been pregnant or who, have, as they phrase it, who have experienced pregnancy, and then those who have not experienced pregnancy. And I think what they're trying to get to is like, how do we support people in the early phases during their pregnancy and then post pregnancy to come back to elite sport? Because part of the problem is you need ranking points or whatever to get into races. So how are those preserved, and how do you then come back? Because some people would see it as unfair for you to go spend 2 years out, come back and be ranked the same. And
Mm.
some would say if you don't do something like that, then it's impossible to get back. So how do you get into these things? So I think they're looking at two different groups here: those who've experienced it, those who haven't, to try and find a solution that makes sense for everybody. and is palatable to everybody. So I think it's interesting. It says that it wants to protect female athletes and reduce inequities within elite athletics. Um, yeah, so yeah, it's interesting. It's not an easy problem. You're basically fighting equity and equality, right? So you're trying to balance those two factors, which in society in any part of the world is almost impossible. It's very difficult to find a solution that's palatable to everybody. But this might be where the ranking points help. Uh, Whereas everyone's sort of anti-ranking points, or the athletes are anti-ranking points, maybe they help. Maybe they have a decay rate that you can sort of keep them at, and it sort of counts for a period of time. I don't know, but follow. Let's watch this space and see what happens.
And then Berlin Marathon have announced some big hitters to their race: Tiggs Asafa and Sebastian Sawe.
Yeah, so I mean, this is kind of predictable. Basically, what happens is athletes and or their managers have a relationship with the race, and they sort of go back often, partially because they're big names and big money, but partially they're comfortable with it and whatever else. There might be an agreement there. So Kajelcha, we talked about already, and when Sawe did this, I said he's probably going to go to Berlin, right? So lo and behold, it's happened. So Sawe's going to Berlin, Tiggs Assefa as well. I think this is Berlin looking to try and get another record because it's kind of like, oh, everyone's run fast elsewhere. Like Valencia is where you run fast, or it's you go to London to run fast. So I think they're trying to regain that. So they're really. I mean, there's a good chance that they'll break records if it's not too hot a day. It's really the reality of it. It's a good marathon major to run fast in that part of the year. The alternative would be Chicago, which is closer, or if you want to push it back a little bit, you go to Valencia. It's not a world marathon major. There's less prize money, etc. So, yeah, let's. I'm excited to watch that. It's a pity he's not racing Kajelcha, but we'll see.
I'm excited to see how he goes after that feat in London. I'm meaning to ask you, do you have some more FIFA World Cup facts, fun facts? You brought us some great facts last week. Did you pick any up this week?
Yeah, some really cool stuff. So there's a mother-son duo, Tyler Bindon and his mother, Jenny, became the first mother-son to represent their country at a Football World Cup. So they both represented New Zealand,
Ah.
which I think is really cool. It's surprising. I thought we'd see it the other way around as like a father-daughter. I thought we'd see that earlier, but obviously not. That's quite cool here. And then this was really cool. This speaks somewhat to Norway's absence from the World Cup, but the three fathers competed in 1994 at the World Cup, and now their three sons are competing together in 2026, debuting. They all debuted. The 1994 fathers debuted, and these 2026 sons debuted, all in the World Cups, which I think is super cool. 32 years later. So all in the United States, because 94 and 2026 are both in the United States. So Alf Inge Haaland and his son Erling, obviously, Goran Sorloth, and then his son Alexander, and then Eric Thorstvedt and his son Kristian. So I think that's really, really cool as well.
And then I know our chief meme officer, long-time listeners will know every single week Spencer Louderbeck creates these cool memes for our Instagram page based off of what we've discussed. He's been throwing Femke Bol's name around a lot. What's that been about?
So Femke, she's Femke Broeders-Bol. She got married, so she's now hyphenated. So she competed in the FBK Games, which is in Hengelo in the Netherlands. So it's pretty high profile there. It's a tier down. It's in that gold level. So similar to Ostrava, where she's been racing. So she raced Abby Caldwell, the Australian 1500 meter champion, and she's a Commonwealth medalist in the 1500 meter as well. So this was fairly tactical. There was Lisanne de Witt paced and then stepped off awkwardly, but she paced, and then Femke sort of took over, and it was like, okay, is Abby going to catch her here? I think Abby was probably a little bit too far back and maybe didn't quite have it, but Femke held her off in a bit of a tactical battle. So Femke won it in 157.42, but ran in Ostrava a week ago at the Golden Spike. She ran 157.13. She's still 4 seconds off sort of Audrey Werrow and Keely Hodgkinson, but it's interesting thinking about this in the context of what we discussed last week with Gout Gout. And it's like where she's obviously a superstar. She's one of the biggest names in world athletics in the 400 meter hurdles, but now she's in the 800 meters. So how do you adjust that and get her opportunities to race and make them positive learning experiences for her? So you need to put her in different scenarios, but you also don't want to put her, like putting her in a race with Audrey Vera, like what does that do for her? She's so far off that performance capacity yet physiologically that maybe tactically that's actually not the best thing for her, because the key with the 800 meters is learning the tactics of it. So you need to expose her progressively in a way that she hasn't been, right? So where Keely Hodgkinson has, Audrey Vera has, how do we give her that tactical experience? So you actually probably get her to race pretty frequently as best you can in these lower level races at this stage of the season to then allow her to go race later in the season at European Championships or Ultimate Championships or something like this, with the view towards long-term LA Olympics, right? So it's like, how do we expose her progressively? You do want her in some big races, like we said with Gout, but you want her in some lower level races so she feels a level of mastery and success. Otherwise, she just gets her confidence knocked in those big races. Because if she turns up to Keely and Audrey, she's going to get absolutely spanked at this stage.
Interesting. Did you, by the way, did you see Gout Gout racing Noah Lyles 950-meter and finishing third?
I thought it was second, might have been fifth, third. But yes, I did. I did watch it, and it was good. He raced really well there. It's back to what we talked about around his start, right? And so, if he's that far behind with all that stuff, it can put pressure on him and all that. But I do think he looked much better in that 150 than he did in the 200. Interestingly, he's probably better at the moment, better suited to a 200 because his start's so bad, or
Okay.
I'm talking relatively bad.
Yeah,
But the worse your start is, the more you're suited to longer races, right? This is why Usain Bolt was better in the 200 than the 100 because his start wasn't quite there. So they come over the top of people. So you need Gout to have more opportunity to come over the top.
What
so
was
I
that?
think he raced.
What was that race again? Some world athletics, something.
I think it was it. I think it was in the Strava Golden Spike. I think it was the 150 there, whereas Femke was in the 800.
Okay, yes, actually, you're right. You're right. Yeah. Okay, let's move this along. We talked about Tim Payne. He's currently playing in the World Cup for New Zealand and gained a crazy amount of Instagram followers. He's now set to move from the Wellington Phoenix to the South American Giants Club Olympia. They are 48-time Paraguayan champions. Why did you want to talk about this? What interests you about it?
I think there's something here that I think we need to talk about. So this is the power of creators, right? We talked about this. Tim Payne was the least followed guy. The creator gets on, says, "Hey," I think it was a Spanish speaking creator. Got on, said, "Hey, follow this guy. Go like his post, support him. We want to pump him up, right?" So he went from like, I don't know, it was a couple tens of thousands of followers to now he's 5.9 million. When I checked this, when I was writing this,
Wow.
right? So this is a direct result of that. Now, this could be because it's not to say Tim Payne is a bad footballer. It's not that. But I promise you, if people weren't talking about Tim Payne, this wouldn't have happened.
Zero chance.
Either because people didn't know who he was, and you wouldn't be watching New Zealand play to think, oh, can we go find somebody, right? There's not many people who think like that, right? I think like this in rugby. I think Brazilian front row forwards are the next big target. You heard it here first. Brazilian front rowers are big and impressive.
Interesting.
In rugby, which is bizarre because it's not a rugby nation. But anyway, I digress. So this is either a result of the creators' awareness or indeed the social media following at 5.9 million. Why? Club Olympia has 1.1 million followers.
I was just about to look this up, but you already beat me to it.
I'm not sure what they had before Tim Payne announced, but if you look at their reels, you'll see that their reels are getting hundreds of thousands of views, and Tim's announcement got 7.9 million views.
Oh, wow.
So if you just think about the commercial value of Tim Payne bringing an audience to them, it is significant. And all sport is
and
about
it's likely to be the right audience, seeing as you said it was a South American creator who called.
Correct.
Called
I mean, not all that's going to be South American, but it's going to be a good portion of it.
Yeah.
Or a Spanish-speaking creator. I don't know if he was from South America. I think he might have been. So all sport's about money, right? And there's only a handful of ways you can earn money in sport, right? So there's basically commercial. So you're thinking merch, etc. Then you're thinking match day, which is tickets, food, etc. And then media, which is TV rights, and then maybe social media as the world is changing. So this is huge for them from a financial standpoint, even if he barely plays, because he's bringing a bunch of supporters, etc. So in David Beckham's move to Real Madrid in 2003, on his first day, the club sold 8,000 shirts or jerseys worth approximately roughly £500,000 in just 7 hours.
Wow.
So over 1 million Beckham shirts were sold in the first year reportedly, which helped recover his transfer fee within months. So there's obviously a transfer fee paid here to get Tim Payne. It was undisclosed amount. But his ROI to that club is probably close to paid off already, given this. And, when you think about Ilona Maher, we talked about her.
Rugby player.
When we think the rugby player, world's most followed rugby player. So she's an American rugby player, and she went to Bristol Bears Women's. And I have heard from their CEO talking on a podcast, like huge jersey sales, huge amount of social media followers, a lot of a different audience, a lot of young women, a lot of new fans. And then they had to use bigger stadiums. So when you think about earnings, you have new audience and you're using bigger stadiums. So that's going to affect match day sales significantly, and then a bunch of merch sales. So her contract was probably paid for in spades because she brought her social media audience with her. So like, are we moving towards an influencer phase of professional teams? And most importantly, even more concerningly, what if we have like individuals? Is this an issue where individuals can sort of wave a wand and impact and move the gravity of professional sport? So if I'm a creator and I'm like, I just want to move the thing here, I can just point the spotlight at somebody and then like give them a leg up.
I think it is league dependent. I don't think you're going to see that in the Premier League or La Liga because the level of performance is so high. So if you can't back it up with performance, you could see it in cycling where a World Tour team hires someone for their following, but they might not make the Tour de France final eight, you know? I think performance will always be the big driver. I think it is league dependent. This works probably in South America because of the level the league is at, but I don't think you're going to see Real Madrid, Barcelona, Atletico Madrid sign someone based off their following. Oh, or let me say only based off of their following.
It's not about only, but because remember, this is like people use influencer as a pejorative. It's not that. It's not an insult. It's, are you like, you know, if we think about it as 100%, there are some people who are 100% performance, and there are some people who are 100% creator, right? Social media creator. And then there are these people who sit somewhere in the middle. And it's like, what percentage of that are you? Right? What's your percentage? Are you 60-40, 50-50, 70-30? The question is, because Ilona Maher is a good rugby player. It's not that. It's not that she doesn't do this, but she's probably just as much on social as she is a rugby player. She's probably 50-50. Tim Payne has historically not been that. This is the concern, is that he's actually not been that. He hasn't earned this following. This person pointed the following at him and now can influence any amount of decisions that are made because some creator decided, hey, let's like point a spotlight at some random dude. That's the concern here. Is it's not like if Tim Payne decides to make this part of his career, like now we have just somebody points a spotlight at him and all of a sudden he can do stuff. It's real. I'm not negative about this, but it's something I've been thinking about a lot, is like, this creator has legitimately changed 2 football leagues via one post. That's crazy to think about.
Yeah, that is insane. It is to a large part, the economy we are living in. It's like when Manchester United signed Cristiano Ronaldo for the second time. I mean, the bump in the team's followers, the bump in jersey sales, obviously that's real revenue, but it is backed up by his performance and who he is and what he's achieved. I'm not saying these people are bad performers. I do still think performance, I think it's league dependent. I think it's the level of the league, the level of the sport, and where it's going, like, and where it's at, in
I
terms
think
of
so.
how much the creator economy will play a role in that.
Yeah, I think so. And listen, I don't think you could recreate the Tim Payne thing. Like, it's lightning in a bottle.
Yeah,
but the question is, like, are we going to see something like this again? Are we going to see more of this, etc.? Like, I don't think
definitely.
I think a lot of athletes now realize that they need to use their social media, but the question is not that. It's, can we have somebody who's not doing that, who has another spotlight pointed on them, and all of a sudden it's the flap of a butterfly. It's a butterfly effect, right? All of a sudden there's chaos the other end of the world.
Yeah. Good find. Okay, we've been alluding to Kristian the whole time. Let's get to this week's interview. Kristian Hogenhaug is a professional triathlete and coach. Having only begun triathlon at 21 with no prior elite sports background, he has quickly ascended to being a top-tier pro with multiple Ironman and Challenge family podiums, as well as a top 10 at Ironman World Championships and taking third in the 2025 Ironman Pro Series. Known for his bike prowess, he set the fastest ever Ironman bike split in 2025 at Ironman Frankfurt, riding a blistery 3:52:10. He holds a master's degree in sports science and has a deep interest in physiology and nutrition. In his personal life, Kristian is a father to a young child. Some of Kristian's other loves include coffee and pizza, as with many endurance athletes, but he's also a big fan of badminton and previously World of Warcraft. Kristian, welcome to 1% Better.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to to a good chat also with nerds like you two. So
Yeah. You're on the right podcast. You're very much the right podcast. So off air before, we had a moment where we were asking you about pronunciation of your surname. We gave you a couple of options. You said they're all within bounds.
yeah,
And then you gave us a great story about what was out of bounds. What were you once called at the airport there that you mentioned before?
yeah. So uh, like as you said, like Hogenhaug, that's I can go with that. But I was once called at the disc at an airport, Hornyhaug, and I also think the lady realized that it probably wasn't Hornyhaug, but yeah.
How would
Where,
you say it?
Hogenhaug. So it's like we have this letter Ö in Danish, and I think it comes like deep down from the throat. So it's almost impossible for you guys to
yeah,
do it justice. So I just go with an O when I write it for foreign people. Yeah.
yeah. And where in the world were you when that happened? Because this is going to be interesting. Which airport were you at?
That must have been that was in Dallas in USA. So
Very good. Very good. Very good. But I wanted to start at like a bit of the beginning. There's quite a bit of your story online, and you've got to fact check things. But I read you got into triathlon because of a teacher of yours. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
yeah, so uh, like I've actually always been interested in sports, like throughout my childhood as well. Also, my childhood idols span from like 800-meter guy to our first Tour de France winner in Denmark. But then kind of transitioned more like in high school to computer gaming, and I think after that, before I started the university, my parents also thought I had the 2 gap years that it might be good to get me into some other things than triathlon. So I started on like here in Denmark we have it's something called folk high schools where you just have fun. So uh, themes could be like sports, and there was this guy who did triathlon, and that's it's we're back in 2012. So like at least here in Denmark, we only just had like the first full distance race challenge Copenhagen at that time. So it wasn't something that people did knew much about. And just remember, he was like the coolest guy. He was like the leanest I've ever seen a guy, and and he was also, and he did Ironmans, and of course that inspired us guys to want to do it as well. So that kind of became the goal when we finished the folk high school.
It's an interesting point you bring up because there's a lot of if you can't see it, you can't be it. Right. So you had a guy that you could see, hey, I can be like him. He's Danish. He's here. He's in my town. But also you had a race that inspired people. And
Mm.
this speaks to it because that's 2012. Fast forward 14 years, we now have at least 3, maybe more Danes who are in the top handful of triathletes in the Ironman fields at any Ironman they turn up to. Right? You Daniel Bakkegaard, Magnus Ditlev, like these people, if they're on the start list, they get talked about. Right? That's really interesting from a tiny country, right? You have similar in Norway with the Norwegians, and that's obviously more about the sports institution that were built there. You obviously got Germany with the Bundesliga. You have France with their series as well, and these countries are very overrepresented for when you compare to places like Australia, where you've got triathlons everywhere, right? And
Yeah.
it was in the Sydney Olympics, and that was the start of triathlon like really taking off in Australia, which is 12 years before anything else, and that was built before that. So it's interesting to think about the sociology of sport and what then drives performance, because you three are now inspiring a group of children, call them 8-10 years old, to be the next group that comes through. So I think it's interesting how we pull on a thread and then all of a sudden see like a specific sort of thing that's happened, right? So anyway, I don't want to digress, but I do want to ask, you went to a sports high school, you were thinking about sports, but you were also into World of Warcraft. Was esports ever an option for you?
No, like at least at that time, it wasn't. You weren't really one of the cool kids. I think it involved since, but yeah, I played a lot, but I never were at the level where I could make money from it, or
Got it.
at least I also don't think my parents would have allowed it at that time, which is probably.
Generally, they don't until you start making money from it. Then they realize it's a viable option, right? It's a terrible hobby until it's a viable career. My
until
understanding.
Until you can buy them something with the money you earn. Then they're like, oh,
yeah.
Yeah,
because they have no idea what's going on when you sit down and play. But I think they were so frustrated at one point. They bought a trampoline for me and my brother just to get us a little bit outside. So I think they definitely thought there were better ways to spend your time.
Yeah. And again, very true until you're earning a living from it, right? And you're top esport player. So
yeah. But I guess it's the same with triathlon. Like they had no idea what it was until it actually started going well. Yeah.
That was going to be my question. But on that, so when did you realize you could go pro, right? So you said it when it started going well. At what point did you realize actually this is something that I could go professional with and make a living out of?
Yeah, so I actually never had any aspirations to do pro triathlon. Like it was just, I did it like of pure enjoyment. And I was also, at that time studying sports science on the side. And I've always just been very interested. I also think that maybe like when I play World of Warcraft, you had like a character which you could like develop, and like with triathlon, I think I were that character myself. And like sidewise with the study, we just I've never read so many studies like when you are at the university, so you get so much knowledge, and we just found it so fun to like try and implement some of the studies, even though it might like work in a theoretic environment or like very controlled. We just try to like do some of the training interventions and stuff like that. So, but it kind of evolved, and then I think I finished second in my age group at Ironman Hawaii in 16. So like the next obvious step, I thought if I wanted to keep progressing was just to get a pro license and then just take it from there. But again, it was just something I also did while I was still studying, and but I kept progressing, and then when I finished my master's in 18, it was the obvious choice to just try and go and chase it. And also happened to get my first professional win the year after. So then everything just kind of little rolled from there, and got contacted by the BMC pro triathlon team at that time. And so I also think I was really lucky how thing played out at that time.
I was just about to ask you, actually, how does it become a viable option? Because it's not like professional cycling or football where a team can just sign you up and you start earning a salary immediately. Most professional triathletes have individual sponsorships, and you hope it adds up to something that allows you to do the sport professionally. But you actually were signed to a team. But before that, like, how does it be, like, before you win your first pro race on a pro license, how does it become a viable thing that you do?
Yeah, so I was kind of like limited to what races I would do. Like mostly it had to be like probably races where you could drive to, and like I couldn't really go on like long haul trips. They were like too expensive. So I was just trying to do as many races near to me as possible. And I was also just used to, when you're a student, your budget isn't the biggest. So I was kind of used to eating a lot of oats and stuff like that. And so like, and when you come directly from that, I was like, surely I can do this a couple of years more that way. And then I've had a good experience with it if it doesn't work out. And so I was kind of content with that.
So you mentioned you got second at Ironman World Championships as an age grouper, and you transitioned to pro pretty quickly. And you see this a lot with age groupers beating pros, perhaps in some fields, right? Or they'll do really well. They might even in Hawaii beat some of the pro times, or maybe even beat a pro. And there's this thought, oh, well, I'll just go pro and therefore I'll be successful because I'm beating all these pros, right? But I think firstly, there's a huge difference between your best day and someone else's worst day, and whether that's better, right? And that can often happen. But it's secondly, I think once you're in the pro fields, things change quite a bit, right? I think racing the same time in the pro and the amateur fields is very different for lots of reasons. You mentioned you won one straight away, so maybe this is a bad question, but how hard is that transition?
It's like, and it's only, I think it's like the way I transitioned from age grouper to pro is, I think maybe that transition is, I think we'll see is getting rare, more and more rare. I think because the level is just the difference between a good age grouper and a good pro is, I would say, the gap is getting bigger and bigger, and also the fields are getting deeper. But the way you race, like as an age grouper, is a perfectly paced effort. And I remember when I first started racing pro, also because when I was an age grouper, I was one of the best bikers, but also thought I wanted to be one of the best bikers in the pro field. So I just for the first couple of years, and I also thought that you had to be there in the swim. So like it was always like 1 hour all out on the swim, and then 2 hours at the 70.3 pace or something like that, and then just try to survive the rest of the race. I think I've dialed it a little bit down now, but I got some good experience from it. But it's definitely something else, and now you have to ride with the dynamics. Like if I get out of the water and there is a gap of 1 minute to a bigger group, I want to close that gap as quickly as possible, because there is, even with the 20-meter rules, there is some good drafting benefits, and also when you're at the front, you are in control of the race. So yeah, I have tried to pace my own race as a pro, and it's never really, that's not where I have my best results. It's come from racing the race instead of pacing from the start, at least.
I've certainly heard from some pros that remain nameless that if you pace things, it's certainly doable to often pick up a lot of the back of the field, but you'll never win. Right? So if you want to win, you have to be in the dynamic. And I think that's the huge difference in general for everybody between racing and pacing, right? Pacing it is your best possible time on that day, but that may not actually be the best way for you to perform the best in the field because of, as you say, dynamics, be it on the run, be it in the swim with drafting effects or current effects, or indeed drafting effects on the bike. So I think there's a huge difference there. Did you, at what point, sorry, carry on.
Oh yeah, it's just, I would say that, if you just pace it properly, then in a way you can, I don't know, in lack of a better word, you can kind of get lucky and then get a really good result, but you also kind of put that result in the hands of all the other athletes. Like if they race too aggressively at the front or something like that, but you kind of put it into your own hands if you really go to the front and then are in the race and are a part of it, where the opposite, you have no control of the race itself, but of course you get your best performance on the day. But
and there's a balance to be struck there, right? Because 2 years ago in Hawaii, we saw absolute carnage at the front because everyone was going for it, right? So there's it's never either or, it's always a bit of both. You do need to have the confidence in yourself, and Patrick Lang is great at this, is have the confidence in yourself to go, this is too fast, these guys are going too fast, they will come back to me. And if they don't, I shouldn't be going with them because I cannot do that, right? This is a surefire way for me to fail today, right? Because there's a difference between racing and knowing I'm over the limit a little bit now, but this will slow down, and this is suicide pace, where this is not smart, right? There's a line to be struck
to
there.
Experience.
Yeah. And ultimately, experience is the name everyone gives to their mistakes.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's ultimately what experience is, as much as everyone would love to believe it's something else. But
I had that conversation recently with a pro triathlete's dad, who shall remain nameless, who he's got a lot of attention very quickly in his career, but doesn't have the results to back it up, because he'd be leading the swim, leading the bike, and then walk the run, And his dad was saying, but it's actually been good that he's been pushing the last 2 years like this to see where his limit is, and I think it's really going to help him later on. And I hope that is the case, But it's exactly what you just said, David. It's we call our mistakes experience.
Yeah.
and you have to you'll never learn a lesson until you're ready to learn it. That's the other thing. You have to be ready to learn it and be a student of the sport and really dial things in and try and understand that stuff. But is there a moment where you realized, maybe the answer is as simple as my first win, when you realized you could be a top tier pro, right? Because there's a difference between, again, you sort of mentioned this, the gap between the top tier pros and the top age groupers is changing. I think those top age groupers can still get pro licenses, and not with great difficulty depending on their country. But there's a huge difference between I am a pro and I'm a competitive pro, right? Or even I'm a pro and I'm making money off this. Because I think this is the other misconception, is like, no one pays you as a pro. That's just a license you get.
Yeah.
You then have to acquire sponsors. You then have to win money. You have to do all those things.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say I think I never, like, it also came to me as a surprise when I won my first, and I definitely I think it more ignited a fire within me that maybe this is something I have to pursue. But I would say, looking at it purely performance-wise, it's not something that would justify that I could make a career out of it. I mean, I think maybe last year Laura Phil was my first win was at Ironman Hamburg, and I think last year Laura Phil were really close to my winning time at that point. So, wow. So pure performance-wise, it's of course the sport has involved, but yeah. So I've always judges my result also, not just by the outcome itself, by the result, but also the pure performance in it, to kind of see that if it was viable for me to kind of keep going. And I think you kind of get obsessed to see where the limits of your own physiology is. And also when you're a student of it, it's just very exciting.
Well, let's go to that student. What was your plan? So you're doing a master's of sports science, and you said you weren't really triathlon was kind of a hobby. The plan wasn't pro triathlon career. So what was the thought? Was it always to go into coaching, or where was your mind at when you were finishing that sort of sports science master's?
Yeah, that's the problem. I didn't really have a plan, but I always picked things out of pure interest, and just feel lucky that just picking things out of interest has always opened doors and opportunities. But I think, of course, now the dream is to, after my career, hopefully there's a good few years left, but then transition a little bit into coaching, just because I really enjoy that side of it.
I have a question for you. Does having a master's degree make you a nightmare to coach?
Yeah, that's also, I think I couldn't have any other guy to coach me than Torben, my coach, because I think it's a 50-50 relationship. So we spare with each other,
sparring,
sparring. So it goes back and forth, and yes, I think sometimes I also plot something into my own training peaks, but so probably a nightmare in that regard. But I think it's my triathlon career is in a project we both share now, and then I guess we think two minds are better than one, and sometimes I'm right and sometimes he's right, and then we can get some good chats about it. And it's also, I would say, I don't know what you think, but it's so hard to be objective about your own performance. And I think, in my regards, it's always a bit of a red flag if someone only coaches themselves. Maybe the Norwegians are an exception, but they also have each other to talk to, so they can get different opinions on their thoughts and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think so. I've got a couple of thoughts here. The first is there are only I have a bit of a pet theory that there are two types of athletes that succeed. The athletes like you, the Norwegians, etc., who are super bought in and who co-create training, who have a high level of knowledge and can sort of half coach themselves, but like have somebody else. And athletes who have no knowledge at all and just say yes. And if you write the wrong thing in Training Peaks and it's way too hard, they'll still somehow do that. Right? It's like it's the two ends of the spectrum. The people in the middle are the ones that struggle, where they're not as bought in, but they know a little bit, but it's like a dangerous level. And there's this sort of gray zone in the middle where I think there's a real challenge because they don't know enough, but they question too much. So I think that's one of my theories. But I think you're mostly right. I think you do need someone to bounce ideas off. I do think it takes a special person to be able to be objective enough about their own training data. And I think that's the hardest bit. I don't think there are many people who can do it. I think there is an advantage in spending some time self-coached because I do think there's some learning there. But I do think there's not many people who can be objective enough and non-emotional about their training, right? Because on a bad day, you want someone to say, don't worry about it, it's this reason. And on a good day, you want someone to just, pat you on the back. It's hard to ride middling on that as an athlete. So I think you're right there. How does this fit with you as a coach? So you have athletes, right, that you coach, and one of whom, I'm sorry, her name eludes me, but she got third recently at a big race.
Yeah, she came second at Hamburg and also second at Elsinore a few days ago. Second to Kat Matthews, so that's pretty
not bad,
pretty good.
Yeah. So how does it work in those contexts? Are they similar athletes to you, or are they very different in that respect? Are they also all sort of bought in? Is it still co-created, or is it more? I don't want to say dictatorial, but are you more in charge in that respect?
Yeah, I think So I think Katrin is. She really trusts me, and also she has also started triathlon quite late, so I think she can also relate to me in that regard. And I've made so many mistakes during my first years that we can kind of cut path or do some shortcuts at certain areas. But I also think what makes her very good is she already had a elite career as a kayak rower, so she kind of knows what it's about. And actually, she spent her first 2 years as a pro self-coached. So, but then 2 years ago, she thought she might need someone to help her a little bit with it. But I also think that helped her quite a lot. And she also said she did it to actually just figure stuff out, and I think that's really good. And she's also, what makes her exceptionally good is also that she kind of also takes responsibility of her training in that regard. That if something feels off, she can, she's not ashamed of cutting a session short or anything like that. So that's also makes my job a little bit easier because. She never goes down a big hole. And so that's a really nice relationship.
Yeah, I think that's key and this is kind of why I have the theory I mentioned around the two types of athletes that succeed. One of them will just do the session and get it done no matter what. And generally they're okay. The other one that's probably a little bit easier to coach in some respects, particularly if you're not there in person, is the person who can adjust things on the fly. Be that it's too much, I'm cutting back today, or the goal of this session is X, therefore I will modify it such that it meets that goal better given where I'm at today. Right. Yeah. So it might be, it's for arbitrary sake, it's a threshold session. I'm not going to hit the duration of those reps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them shorter, accumulate the same amount of time, but they're going to be 5-minute reps, not 10-minute reps. So I'll get the same, but it'll be a little bit easier. Right. So something like that.
I'll cut the power a little bit down, but exactly. Then, it feels like threshold, but yeah.
Exactly. And then understanding where you should be, how you should be modifying at what stage of the season with respect to with respect to key goals, right? So at this phase, I'm better off riding more power. Here, I'm better off cutting power, et cetera, et cetera. So I think you're right in that respect. But on this, and you mentioned early in your career was about swim and then bike and then sort of grit your teeth and hold on. And you also mentioned, building characters in World of Warcraft and allotting resources there. How do you think about this when you're allotting resources in your week, right? Because at the moment, you're seen as a bit of an Uber biker. But, how does that fit into where you're going? Are you trying to keep that as a strength? Are you trying to allot things and even them out a little bit more so you can be more competitive on the run? What does it look like for you?
Yeah, so like what I have experienced is that when I try to focus a little bit more on the run or like increase the volume, at least like for like during that period, my bike suffers a little bit, and sometimes the swim as well, and also vice versa. Like the times I've had the best pool times and the best power on the bike has been when I had a little run niggle or a run injury, and so so it's definitely like something you have to to weigh out, and I would say now for this year the goal has been to try and like evolve a little bit on the run, and I think my swim has suffered a little bit. I think last year I managed to regularly swim in the front pack, and this year I haven't really been able to do that. So it's definitely something I have to go back to and work on, or maybe I will just like kind of adjust to the more heavier run training, and then over time I'll get some I would say like more energy back into the pool and onto the bike. Um, yeah, and also
And
like I've, I've never been the lightest guy, and also so we have also talked a little bit about trying to maybe not remodel, but like maybe try to go a little bit leaner, because it's and I think if you have maybe a little bit more fat on the body, it's the first kilos aren't that risky, but then of course as if you come down, it's gets a lot more risky compared to the what you get out of it maybe.
yeah, yeah. And maybe if you don't mind taking us through a rough idea of a training week, maybe like total volumes of, maybe not specific sessions because they'll get very technical and very, I guess, very specific to you, but perhaps what does a week look like for you roughly? Like how many swim bikes runs, where do they sit? What's a total training volume look like for you? Something like that.
Yeah, so it has changed a little bit since I became a dad, and like the last few months, we found a really good method that works really good for me. So it revolves around like squeezing in a lot of hours during the weekdays. So I have 6 swims, so that will be like Monday to Friday, and then my only training on Sunday is a swim, and then Saturdays are there's no swim, so that's kind of an effective day with a run and a short bike. And other than that, I'll also have 5 to 6 runs and then 5 bikes, and then it has been around 31 hours per week.
And roughly how are you
Uh,
allotting that time from the discipline? So 6 swims, is that what, 7 hours or so?
yeah, 7 or 8 hours, and
Yep.
then around 7.5 hours on the run, and 4 to 15 hours on the bike or something like that.
Yeah, okay.
And
And so
then
run volume for you, I'm guessing, is around 110, 120 Ks a week. Is that fair?
right around 100, I would say.
Yeah, around 100.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Man.
it's some of it are quite slow in the forest as well.
Oh,
So,
nice.
and also what we have tried to do is like there's Mondays are intensity on the bike, and then intensity on the run on Tuesdays, and then Wednesdays are intensity on the swim, and then long bike. And then what has worked quite well as I've like kind of adjusted to the run volume is that Thursdays are not a rest day, but we call it like a low load day in that regard that I have a 2 hour long run, but it's maybe my average heart rate has been around 115, and
Oh
I think
wow.
my max heart rate is maybe 185 or something like that.
Yeah, that's not even, that's almost zone 0. That's not even quite zone 1 because that's so that's so low.
Yeah, but the pace is still 430, so like muscular wise, it's still kind of a load. But I found that even though I had like heavier days from Monday to Wednesday, like the long run and then a longer swim up around 1 hour 40, then I can actually do quality on both the swim and the bike the following day on the Friday. Because the like intensity is so low, but I still kind of feel like I get the benefits from the long run.
For sure. Like I think people, hopefully increasingly, it's something I've written about quite extensively, is the dissociation or understanding the difference between metabolic and musculoskeletal load, right? So you have 3 days of, you have probably, Monday to Wednesday are all high metabolic loads, plus one day in there where you've got a high mechanical load from your running. Then you have Thursday where you've had 3 intense days. Now you need to recover. That doesn't mean that you've got low mechanical load because you've actually not loaded up that much mechanically. Then you're adding some mechanical load, but low metabolic loads to then allow you to pick up the metabolic load and then have 2 easier days later in the week, right? On the Saturday, Sunday. Yeah. So, and I assume Saturday, Sunday is a lot of family time, given what you sort of mentioned before and how you framed this all up.
Yeah. So actually, Saturday is like a hard run, but then an easy bike just to spin out, and then the swim on the Sunday is always. But then I can be like done at 10 or 11, so I have the remaining of the day, and then Saturday is like Sunday. I have a swim, but it's kind of I can't skip it if I feel like it. If I need that extra time to sleep in, or that I feel like one day completely off from training, and then I'm hungry to get back on the Monday. And also it gives us it gives me flexibility to like do whatever we want, and we can also go into a summer cabin doing Saturday to Sunday, and so do a little bit of like normal stuff. Because I feel like sometimes when you're totally in the grind and you have a goal far out in the future, sometimes, at least for me, it can be quite hard to like, okay, I know in 3 weeks time, I can take like a breather, but now I know like no matter how hard Monday to Saturday is, I can always take a breather during the Sunday. And that has been very good for me.
How do you find recovery at home, having a young child at home now? I'm sure a lot of parents listening would be very interested to know how professional athletes handle that, because I'm sure coming home, lying on the couch after a hard session is very different now, like post-child versus pre-child.
Yeah, true. I also think that's why I need the breather during the Sundays. Just because like otherwise the one day takes the other, because there is always something to do, training or taking care of the baby and stuff like that. And I think if you really like want to enjoy it, I think sometimes it's really important to take a break, or at least know that, okay, maybe it's a little bit hard now, but I can take a break during the weekday, the weekend. So that's because I've never done it that way. I've always maybe loaded up the weekends quite a bit before, and then had easier days, Monday and Friday. I think like a lot of people do. But also being a pro athlete, I have the luxury of maybe keeping the weekends the lightest. So, but that has worked out really well. So.
And I read about you changing loads. You sort of mentioned already tolerating running loads. You just talked about changing a week around. how did you come upon these decisions and how did you evaluate them? Because I think this is something that listeners would get a lot out of is, how do I know I'm not coping? And then when I change things, how do I know that I'm starting to cope more? Is it just about mental energy or is there other factors as well?
Yeah, I think I feel like as long as I can like still perform in my key sessions, then I know I'm doing well. And as I said, like a lot of my run volume is done at like, or at least metabolically, a very very low load. Also, just think like maybe systematically, as a triathlete, you're so aerobically trained that that fitness kind of trump like, because muscularly there's probably still some load when running 32 Ks at 4:30. Like so, but I feel like okay, I can still perform on the run sessions on Tuesday and Saturday. So and I don't feel like I'm getting any like DOMs or anything in the legs. Then I really just feel that it kind of supports all the other training. So that's, and then maybe as I get more used to the volume, I will try and increase the pace a little bit in some of the easier sessions maybe, and use that as a like yeah, button you can turn on a little bit to like further increase the fitness if I don't want to like increase the weekly mileage.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
And talk to us about fueling, because you are joining us today courtesy of Precision Fuel and Hydration. So how does fueling look like at a base level for like an Ironman versus a 70.3? And then above that, like how does it differentiate to a Kona per se?
Yeah, so actually we have always, also because the like when I started the sports science, like all the studies with, I think at that time it was 90 grams of carbohydrates per hour. So even though like as an age grouper, it maybe took like 100 grams per hour at that time. And I remember we saw Jan Frodeno, I can't remember when, maybe 16 or 17. He got sponsored by something called Glucose, which was a product that only used glucose and not fructose. They thought it was bad, and was like, "What the hell is going on?" No, I hope it was a great sponsorship deal for him. But like we were wondering for so long why no one really like took a lot of carbs. But of course, it has kind of evolved quite a bit since then. And I think now I sit around 130 to 50. I think I gut wise I could probably tolerate a lot more, but I'm not sure that I would actually oxidize it. So I don't think there's maybe any need for it. It's not something I've ever tested, but yeah, I know a good athlete. He's also a bigger guy who has tested. I think it was that he actually oxidized a few grams more per hour when he took 180 compared to 150.
Wow. And how did Magnus say he felt after that?
So
Sorry.
there is probably something to it, but it, of course, like if you push more power, there is it's probably a good option. But for and yeah, as I haven't had any like gut discomfort, it's I actually take the same amount of carbohydrates in a race like Hawaii.
But does your source change, or are you pretty much liquid? I mean, for your pros, it's a little bit easier. I mean, I guess in triathlon, it's easier because it's liquid on the bike. You can easily do that. Whereas, if you're running a marathon, liquids are a lot harder if you're not a pro. So I guess is your strategy the same from a liquid versus gels versus? I mean, I assume you're not using chews given your intensity, but yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, on the bike, it's purely fluids, and then on the run, it's mostly gels because it makes it a lot harder or easier for me to like kind of calculate how much I get in, because it's a little more tough to drink while you run. So I'm never sure how much I actually get in. So there always goes with gels, just to make the calculations a little more easy.
Yeah, and that doesn't change 70.3 versus full distance, or it does?
No, actually not. No. Maybe in a race where, like Hawaii, where we have like pro fluid stations where we actually like get a bottle. There I'll use fluids more. But then I also know, like, if I drink this bottle, I'll get maybe 60 or 90 grams of carbs. That's where when you get a cup of Coke or something like that, or something, a powder they have mixed in, you never sure like if it's diluted or anything, and how much you actually drink. So
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk a little about races. Like, you've just come off your top 5 in 70.3 Elsinore. How do you think about 70.3s in your periodization, right? Because obviously the pro series means one thing where it's, you have to do the certain number of them, but we were talking off air before about recovery from a 70.3 and how this fits into an Ironman. How do you think about them in that respect?
yeah, so I actually think some of the times it can be. I've always felt really great, like after racing a 70.3. I don't know if it comes down to it's also such a big stimuli. It's almost like 4 hours at 90% of your maximum heart rate. So it's a like really good like training stimuli in a way, and you come into it probably a little more fresh than you would into a normal training session, and have some few easier days after. So I always feel like I can do some very good training after. So that's also why we chose to do this one, like close to challenge Roth, and then I'll just do some not a lot of like intensity from now on, but just some very specific long distance stuff, like the next 10 days to just fine tune the engine. And so that has always worked great. It's much harder the other way around for me, also just because an Ironman takes so much out of the body, but I don't feel like you lose a lot of training when you taper to a 70.3, and also you can get into normal training maybe 2 or 3 days after. So
what does a taper into a 70.3 versus an Ironman look like?
So maybe I would do a lot more intensity in the race week for a 70.3. So I would almost do a normal Monday with intensity on the bike, and then almost normal intensity. Like if we do it simple, maybe on the Tuesday I would run 12 by 1K instead of maybe 14 times 1K. So and then maybe cut it a little bit down from there. Whereas for Roth, it would more likely be doing some bigger stuff like in the week leading up to it, and then keeping it like just to some actually very easy training in the whole week leading up to the race.
Got it. I think it's interesting you mentioned the 70.3 seems to prime you really well to go into some training or an Ironman itself. I certainly remember as I was bumping up run volumes, I started to notice a pattern where I would never feel good off of a rest day. I'd always feel better the day after a rest day. And so what I started doing was any key sessions I had would be on the second day after a rest. If I had something like that, or if I had a race, I would always make sure to run the day before the race a little bit, just because I always felt better there. And I think that level of noticing and adjusting and tweaking is something that everybody should be trying to take with them. Not, it may not be that you race or whatever. It might be that you say, hey, I got to do a park run 3 weeks out because that helps me to do whatever. You hear these things from marathoners all the time of, I race a half marathon a month out or something like this. And I think there's a lot of stuff that we don't understand at a high level. And you talked about this before. when we do research, that is about population averages, not the individuals within that population. So there's that level, but there's also stuff where people are observing things individually that will never be reproduced in science properly. And so maybe we get there from an individual standpoint as a coach experimenting with your athletes, or as an athlete experimenting on yourself. But I do think people should be within safe bounds, making some experiments or doing some experiments to then take forward some learning towards better performing at a different time, right? So you need to be smart, right? For you, a half Ironman is probably just a big training day. Obviously, there's an intensity difference, but in terms of durations and outputs and distances followed, like that's probably around a normal training day for you. Whereas most of our listeners, a half Ironman might be a stretch goal, right? From a distance time.
Yeah. That's an important point.
Yeah. So I think we need to keep context there. And then similarly, you hear the Norwegians talk about their key week, right? That everyone talks about. It's basically an Ironman over 3 days. It's like, it's actually a reduction in volume for them.
Yeah.
So that context is lost on people.
Yeah.
So I think it's worthwhile just contextualizing what you're hearing from people at all times of like, where does this sit with respect to a normal day or a normal week? Because that's where the learning can come from. Not, oh, I should be doing the race a week out. Like, it's not quite how it works, right? Everyone's a little bit different. But we're talking to you just before Roth, right? This will go out a week before Challenge Roth. We tend to do this so people can listen to it and then follow you along at Roth. So we have links to your Instagram and your Strava in the show notes already, and hopefully people follow Challenge Roth, watch Challenge Roth. But
also, by the way, we have almost 100% hit rate of pro athletes coming on here before a race, and then they do super well. They tend to go and win the race after they've been on the spot. Just so you know, no pressure.
That's really nice to hear.
But how do you choose races, right? So Roth is one of the most classic races. Is probably outside of Kona, it might be one of the most high profile races, and certainly like people want to do it. But how do you choose races more generally?
Yeah, so like it has always been on kind of my bucket list, and I said I wanted to do it not just to tick it off, but I also wanted to do well at it. So I thought now was about time to try and really target it. And whereas the 2 previous years I've been like more focused on more like the whole season, where I try to like target the Pro Series. Whereas now the goals has been to do really well at Roth, and then at Hawaii later this year. So pick 2 bigger races and then try to perform well at them, and then like have the calmness to feel okay, maybe it's okay if I don't perform well at the other races, and more use them as a preparation for the races I target this year. And so that's also changes the build a little bit, and also so try to take it a lot more easy at the start of the year, because most of the time I felt like I've burned out a little bit at the end of the year, because you feel like you have to really perform at a lot of races, whereas now I've picked 2 races this year where I want to do well, and then the rest is what it is, even though it's can be quite hard on the ego to go and know that you're not at your best. And
it's an interesting thing, because we talk often here about the race frequency for long distance triathletes. The race frequency is high. People race almost 12 months a year. These things are very unconventional for endurance sports. Traditionally, endurance sports is very much like an off season that you don't seem to have in a long distance triathlon. You tend to have 1 or 2 key races. Everything builds to those. In long distance triathlon, it's kind of like people are just doing a ton. The Cat Matthews of the world are just going everywhere and doing a ton. And I wonder if, in Kat's case, it's just a function of her being that much better than everybody else. So she doesn't have to have the best day to win. She can have a good day or an average day for her and still win, because she's that much better. Now, the exception being in the best fields, right? So at Kona or whatever else. And you do wonder if some, like her approach where she goes and wins everything and then struggles in Kona or doesn't win Kona, you wonder if she'd be better off doing another way. But then you also hear her say she's motivated by racing, right? So then as a coach, that's really hard to balance, because it's like...
Yeah, that's really hard. Yeah, true. Yeah.
So It's an interesting point. So we've talked about why Roth already, but perhaps what does success look like for you in Roth? How do you, we're talking to you Monday next week. Oh, sorry, Monday, 2 weeks time, coming off a successful Roth. What does success mean, or what does it look like?
So when I told Roth that I want to do the race, even though I already heard rumors back then that, like, for example, Laidlaw and Blumenfeld was going to race, but I still felt like maybe on the perfect day, I could win, even though it may sound crazy to some people, but that's what I really believed. Maybe I haven't had the build up that I kind of wished for, but I still believe I can be in contention for the podium and maybe like impact the race a little bit. I think what lacks a little bit is the swim. Like I think it's a race where it's really important to be at the front of the race after the swim. Also because there is so much firepower at the bike that if they push 400 watts for the first 30 minutes, then if you have to close a gap of 1.5 minutes, like you have to absolutely destroy yourself. But yeah, I would say a podium is, I would probably feel a little bit disappointed if that doesn't happen. But so I'm ready to really just race the race, and we'll also try to do like we've talked about what we can do for the next. Like obviously the work is almost done now regarding with the training, but if there was something we could do with the swim to maybe see if we could like get the last 5%, also because I have been at that level before, so maybe we can get there again. So we'll try and do some like maybe like a little threshold block, but then try to make sure that every other swim is like a threshold swim for the next 10 days, but then the overall volume of the swimming might be a little bit less, so we cut down on the easier zone 1 and 2 stuff, and then it that has worked good for me on the bike, so we'll see if it can work on the swim as well, because I think that will be the key for my performance at the race.
I think that mentality you have of targeting a podium there despite those big names being on the start line is so great. Like often you see in triathlon, we ask you, how do you choose your races? Athletes will sometimes choose their races based on who will not be at that race. And look, you can't fault that too much because you have to earn a living in the sport and prize money goes a long way. But I think that's such a great mentality for an athlete to be like, I don't care that these world champions are there. Like, this is what success will look like to me. And I believe that I can achieve that. So I commend you for that, man.
Thank you. And
how do you think the race is going to play out? So you mentioned already you kind of need to be up the front. You think they're going to probably push big watts early. So it sounds like you think Sam's probably going to lead the swim out, given his swim prowess. Kristian will try to be in touch with him. And if not, he'll probably be, my guess would be somewhere between either in that group or within a minute, and then be pushing to sort of bridge up to Laidlaw pretty quickly. And so my guess is you're probably going to say, if I'm not with Laidlaw at the time trying to cycle away from Kristian, I'm going to be trying to sit on Kristian and cycle up to Laidlaw, and then see what happens on the bike, and then grit your teeth on the run. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, probably is. Yeah, and also that's not my luck, because like there's a lot of I think willingness to really drill the swim because of Kristian, because they know he's probably the guy to beat if you don't come off the bike with a pretty big gap. So I think, guys like Laidlaw, Schomburg, and Rico Bogen, and also Menno Koolhaas, they are all like very, very fast swimmers. And I think there's a lot of willingness between them to really drill the swim. And they also bike very well, all of them. So I think the 4 of them, and then maybe someone that I currently don't have on my radar might be there as well. So I think the main goal will be to try and get onto them, and if not, I'm I think I should be able to, like, if Kristian doesn't make that pack, I'm quite sure I'll be in the pack with behind with Kristian, and then like there is the decision to make to try and bridge the gap or play it smart, and because I think Kristian, he's there to win. I don't think anything else will will make him happy. So he's definitely gonna work for it. He's just not just gonna sit in a group and leave it up to others. He's definitely gonna do some work. So there's also the possibility to maybe work a bit with him. But I think a lot of it, like, I mean, you have like 5 different plans, right? And then once you're out of the swim, you know which one to kind of commit to.
I think there's a level of flexibility that's required as well, right? Because, as Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Like it's all good to have a plan until something different happens. Like Jonas Schomburg, for me, is the person who's going to really disrupt this race. I didn't realize he was racing, but I think everybody doesn't consider him as good as he is, both because his running has been, it's sort of like, oh, well, Jonas will be at the front, but he'll blow up on the run. And I think that's true until it isn't true. And I think if he doesn't blow up on the run this time, he could be really surprising some people. So it'll be interesting to watch it play out. But you sort of talked a little bit about where the sport's going a little bit in this. Where do you think we're going? What do we see on the horizon that's really going to change for people that, someone can listen to this podcast and in 2-3 years go, oh, Kristian Hogenhaug said that. That's interesting to see that. Like, is there something you're seeing as a pattern? It could be an athlete, like, we just talked about Jonas, or it could be a pattern you're seeing of like where we've gone from people who are 2-discipline athletes. Now we're starting to see you kind of need to be more well-rounded. We're starting to see that sort of thing. Or is there another pattern you're seeing emerge and you think, oh, we'll see this on the bike or we'll see this here or something like that?
Yeah, it's something, I don't know if it's like the dynamics in a race or something like that, it feels like the swim is pretty, it is what it is. Maybe people will drill it a little bit more at the start, but that has always kind of just been a bit the same. But then I think we saw a period where people started to like bike a lot harder, and then we saw run time stagnate a little bit, and then suddenly they took a big jump again. Maybe people just got better at biking or something like that, and trained more specifically for it. And so now it's completely normal to run in the 230s, and if not, then like a 240 is almost a slow run now, whereas 6 years ago, if you ran 240, you were considered a runner. Now you're just in the middle of the pack. So I think maybe my assumption is that we'll see the bike maybe getting a bit harder again, and then we'll start to see I don't know, maybe like people working a bit together, but then it will get a bit more like tactical on the bike again, where if guys like Kristian or Kasper, who can bike really well, but if they sit in a group behind Laidlow and Magnus and stuff like that, are they willing to do the work to keep the speed up, but then sacrifice a little bit on the run? Because I think after moving to 20 meters, I think people are kind of assessing like how to approach a race again. It has moved a little bit from like maybe a bit more like undulating intensity to being a little bit more well-paced overall race in a way. Maybe that's also why I think people expected running times to be slower when moving to 20 meters, but we've seen the exact opposite.
I certainly did, yeah.
Me too as well.
It's an interesting take though that you mentioned that it's meant that it's less stochastic, and therefore you're and we've seen from some of the durability research that the stochastic nature of things, that above critical power seems to be the stuff that really impacts durability more than work done. It's more about the work done above critical power. So if you've got a more stochastic race, your average power might be the same, but you'll be more trashed. So that's quite interesting. We had one more question for you. Talk to us about being a bus driver. What does that mean to you?
A bus driver. Ah. Yeah, so that's kind of just a mental approach I learned from a really good sports psychologist, that whether it's within training or in a race or in your daily life, you're kind of riding, you're the driver of a bus, and you have to go and pick people up, and some of them are just gonna come in, walk by you, and then sit in the bus. Some of them are just gonna come in the bus and say, "You're not good enough. Why are you doing this?" And but then you just have to still welcome them in the bus, let them sit in the bus, and then eventually they'll get off the bus again. But they'll keep coming on. But it's how you kind of react to those thoughts, like getting on your bus, that kind of how they you're kind of the driving force of how that's impacting you, because they're going to be there no matter what. So whether you choose to act on them or not, that's your decision. But they are going to be there, but they eventually also going to get off the bus again.
So interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Such a good way to think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Super cool. Kristian, this has been great. We've really appreciated your time. Appreciated you joining us, in a week that's probably a heavier week for you, with Taper Week coming next week. But really appreciate it. We're going to be following along. Our listeners will follow along. Is there any way they should follow you that isn't Instagram or Strava?
No, not at the moment. No.
Okay, that sounds like maybe in the future. And so in the future, if there's something else you wanna plug, there's something else they should follow you on, you let us know. You're welcome back anytime. You have an open invitation. If you win Roth, we have right of first refusal for an interview. We're reserving it now. So
that's the deal.
So we'll have you back if you win Roth. But we're happy to have you back anyway. Thank you so much, Kristian. It's been great. You take care.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course.
Geez, thanks so much to Kristian. I've got such a complex saying his surname now. Hogenhaug, I think it is, something like that.
I'm not sure if you're getting better or worse.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But nice guy. I really enjoyed chatting to him. Such a nice guy.
Yeah, lovely. Absolutely lovely, dude. It was a great chat on and off air.
By the way, if you'd like us to get guests like this, as you can tell, our guests are getting more and more high profile, and that's thanks to you and the amount of subscriptions that we have. So if you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, please do so now. Do we have anyone in the doctor's office this week?
Yeah, a couple. So probably the lower profile one, or the less concerning one, is Keely Hodgkinson. So she was at the British Championships. So she was going to run the 400 meters in the finals, and during the warm-up, she tweaked her hamstring. So
really?
Just let everyone know that. Yeah, not like terribly, but she felt something in her hamstring. It's probably, maybe it was nothing, maybe it was a very low-grade strain or something like this. I'm guessing she's probably not going to miss a great deal of time, but she decided not to race, which I think is a wise choice, because she's got London Diamond League coming, where she wants to try and break the world 800-meter record. Now, if you're a betting person, you bet against that happening, because A, it's hard, and B, she's not 100% at the moment. So, but let's see. She could do, and I think it's the right approach for her. She's a speed type athlete. We talked about this. She's 4.8, not 8.15. You improve her top speed so that you can extend that a little bit more. So I do think she's going about it the right way. She does have some time to London, but let's see. I do think she's high potential. I've talked before about her being the first woman to break the 4-minute mile. And I think that could be the case. So let's see. But best wishes to Keely, healing up. And then the more concerning one is 3-time Olympian Jenny Simpson. So she won a gold medal in the 1,500 meters at the 2011 World Champs. She won silvers at the 2013 and 2017 World Champs, and a bronze at the 2016 Rio Olympics. So she paced a mile in North Carolina and then collapsed. Reportedly had no pulse, got CPR, and then a defibrillator was put on her to restore her pulse. And so this is why defibrillators are so important to have at sporting events and sporting locations, because without a defibrillator, she dies.
Yeah.
That if you've got a shockable rhythm, the solution is to shock them. the CPR is temporizing until we can get the defibrillator on there.
Yeah.
So
I did a first aid course a while ago, and I was surprised to learn that.
Yeah, I mean, it's only temporizing for so long. And the question is a CPR good enough? Like, and you should be trying and all those things, but like CPR isn't always as effective as people think it is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So like you should be doing the CPR, and then you need to get the defibrillator on there as soon as possible.
Is what happened to her connected to what we were talking about, Kristian Eriksen, the footballer who collapsed for a second time?
Could be. It depends on what's causing. I mean, it's a heart problem, almost certainly. The question is like, what's driving it? Is there a rhythm abnormality? Has something else happened? Was she sick? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So could well be. There's all sorts of things that can happen. And yeah, I don't like to speculate, particularly about people like this in this situation. So she is, but it could be the exact same thing. Is to answer your question, could well be.
Okay. Let's get out of here. Before we do, what are we watching this weekend? I'll be watching FIFA World Cup. Can't think of anything else that's on right now. We're recording this early in the week on a Tuesday. I can't even see the weekend yet, man.
Western States, mate.
Oh, so on this weekend.
That'll be an interesting one. Yeah, that'll be many previous guests. Emily Hallgood, Dan Jones are running there, etc. So I'll be keeping an eye on it. Be a big, it's gonna be big. I'm very keen to watch Western States. I think we'll see. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who comes there. Killian's under a bit of an injury cloud. He's been doing some less training, different training. So let's see how Killian goes, etc., etc., etc.
Awesome. We wish all Precision Fuel and Hydration, Stride, and Nomeo athletes well this weekend at Western States. David, thanks so much for putting this together. We'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks, mate.